Thanks for joining us today. We are continuing our podcast series, Stories from the Fire, for those that were impacted by the Eaton Fires of 2025. Today our guests are Taylor and Grant Bridges. Thanks for joining in on their story and believing and praying for them for their recovery and their rebuild process. So happy to have you guys here today. Let's jump into your story a little bit and let us know, I guess, the start of it, where that started that day, how you guys heard about the fire. Were you home? You guys are centered more on the east/middle of Altadena. So any part of that day that feels like a good place for you guys to start for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, that whole experience in some ways kind of started the night before. So that night before had really, really bad winds, and we didn't sleep great that night because we have a 5-year-old daughter who was woken up by the winds, and we had, old windows on our old home, which we adored. And so she had made her way down to crawl into bed with us, as the little kids often do, to be like, I'm scared, can I just sleep with you? So all of us squeezed into one bed as it was. We were like, oh my gosh, what in the world is going on? And
you were pregnant at this point?
Correct, yes. So like 8 months pregnant and some change. So at that point, the next day, when the winds were still really bad, and we ended up getting a text notification partway through the day that they were going to be cutting off power at some point for likely the next 2 days. And so I think for us, we were like, okay, well, we didn't sleep great last night. Let's call my parents who live nearby, and let's see if we can just go stay with them for the night tonight. We can get a good night's sleep. We can, actually get Lainey in a warm bath, and then we'll reset tomorrow at home and go back home and figure out, the power outage at that point. So that was kind of the plan we made in the afternoon. And so ironically, like when we had gone up to the house that evening, it was after the power had already been cut, but we just were grabbing a couple things really for the night. So I remember even in that, actually, we had gotten to the house, and Grant had gotten there a little bit before Lainey and I, because I'd picked her up from school, and we both had late nights at work. And so some candles were lit in the house, and I was like, should we just stay? Like, let's just stay tonight. And he was like, I already ordered pizza to go to your parents' house. So let's go, we're gonna go there, and we'll reset for tomorrow. So at that point—
Divine planning.
We had a tankless water heater, so when the power goes out, you're taking a cold shower.
Yeah,
you're gonna have the tank to get a hot shower. So I was like, we want a hot shower in the morning. At least, maybe I'm high maintenance.
Well, that was, so we were like, we're gonna do this. But I was like, get Lainey in her jammies. I'm going in my PJs. Like, we're just going very simple. So when we got down to my parents' house, Grant had mentioned like, hey, let's throw on the news because there's a big fire over in the Palisades today, and we need to like get up to speed on what's going on. So literally, like right as we had turned it on, the news anchor had said, hey, and by the way, we're sending a truck over to Altadena, and we'll keep you posted on that. And we both looked at each other and we were like, what in the world is going on? Why are they sending a truck to Altadena? We were just there. And granted, the winds were crazy, but that was it. And so then a couple minutes later, my sister texted and was like, hey, there's a fire in Altadena. Are you guys okay? And I think we were just so confused, being like, wait, we literally just left our house. There's nothing going on up there. So Grant looked it up on his phone, and sure enough, we see that there was a fire that had broken out in Eaton Canyon. And that was, not immediately next to our home, but a few blocks away. So I think we both were just confused by that news and thought to ourselves like, oh my gosh, okay, well, Eaton's not right in our backyard, but the winds are pretty crazy. So what is this gonna look like? And Grant had asked me, should I go try and grab a couple more things from the house, or like, what do you think? And I was like, well, maybe honestly, just the wind is so crazy that we might get evacuated. I think at that point, that's just kind of where we were at, was thinking like it might be more than just one night here now. There might be multiple nights here. So at that point, we, Grant was like, I'm gonna hop in the truck, just call me and tell me some things that you can think about in the car, like on the car ride over, that, we might want to take or grab. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I haven't thought about this. I probably should have thought about this, but you just don't really ever expect that it's gonna be real or happen to you.
Yeah.
And so on the way up, I, had called him and said, hey, there's some art in our daughter's room. You could grab that. Here's what all of our important papers are, I think, in my desk. If you can look and grab that, maybe just grab the drawers. And then he was also more concerned, I think, about checking in on some of our neighbors too, because we were in a neighborhood where there were some more, just elderly neighbors that we
80s,
had
90s,
that would
old.
potentially not know that this was going on, because obviously we had just found out only from being down at my parents' house with access to the television. So we're like, well, the power's out up there. So that was when that was kind of Grant's other main priority, I think, from going up. So it was definitely a whirlwind, and I think, just not something that you ever picture or prepare for.
I remember vividly rummaging through drawers and having a sense of kind of this is silly. Why am I doing this? I was but at the same time, I was kind of frantic. There was a little part of me that thought, the wind was nuts up there. I recall I have videos where I was showing my family, this is nuts. Yeah. Check out the trees and everything. And you could see the flares in the distance. And I remember thinking
we joked that Grant was like a weather reporter man on.
I was like a vigilante up there, checking out.
Yeah.
It was kind of I don't want to say it was exciting, but it was oh, there's a fire.
You're just never picturing worst case scenario. You're just thinking oh man, how crazy this is up here.
We're so far from the mountains. It was never really a concern from our house could burn down someday. Yeah. But we also don't have 80 to 100 mile an hour wind gusts up in there typically ever. So there was a part of me that was a little bit well, this could be a concern. I remember dumping out contents from drawers on the floor to get passports and social security cards and birth certificates, and just kind of thinking, I'm just making a mess and I'm gonna have to clean this up tomorrow. Yeah. And ironically, we had taken down our Christmas lights, I think the weekend before. Mm-hmm. And so what's ironic about that is I was up in our garage rafters getting down some of our boxes, and since we were prepping for another baby to come in the next few months, I had gone through some stuff that we had stored, and I also had run into some of our wedding things and some family heirlooms that in a million years, I wouldn't have known where they were if I hadn't have just gone through it and even set some of them aside to be oh, we should go through this or organize this. Yeah. And so ironically, I was about to leave, and Taylor was, looked at me. You didn't look at me, but you
called,
we're on the phone, and she goes, hey, you should go do, and I would have just shrugged her off like I shrugged her off when she asked me to pick up a few more purses and shoes. I was like, this is ridiculous.
We don't need
I'm never gonna live that down. Oh. But because now we gotta buy new shoes.
Yeah.
But I was
come back to you.
I was wrong. I shouldn't have.
But it's true. It's it was pitch black because there was no light, so there's no way you would have ended up crawling through the rafters trying to look for those special things.
I would have shut her down.
Had you not just known about it, which was just kind of a special wink, I think, little bit that we got to preserve some of those things that were really special because he had just happened to have eyes on them the weekend before, or a couple days before.
So many things you don't grab, but at the same time, we were able to get a few things, and looking hindsight, we're just super grateful that we were. But I was up there knocking on doors of our neighbors, and a few of them didn't know what was going on, and they were pretty deranged about what was going on and confused. And so I was just trying to help them get out and check in on some of our friends' homes and things like that. And so it was a pretty wild night.
And so Grant ended up getting home that night, and we stayed up probably till midnight watching the news coverage, just unsure of what was going on. But by the time that we had gone to bed, and I think even watching some of that of where it was going, it was just insane to see actual structures on fire, and that there were neighborhoods that, they were out trying to fight the fires in, but there wasn't really a lot of resources that were available, and just thinking this can't be real. But like I said, I think we stayed up late and noticed that it was all kind of going opposite directions of our home. So at that point we felt pretty good about just going to bed and waking up the next morning, and we were woken up by a phone call from some friends of ours who live over in La Cañada, and they were calling to say, hey, we're getting evacuated. Where did you guys end up? Like, we're just kind of trying to figure out what we're gonna do.
Around 6 a.m.
Which is like the other direction.
Correct. And we
so from where
put two and two together as they're calling of like, wait, if you're getting evacuated, that's completely opposite. Either this is a new fire, which honestly we're kind of hoping for at this point, or that means things have totally shifted, and what does that mean for us? And so I think at that point, I woke up and tried to like frantically figure out like what's going on, where is this fire at? And that's one of the funny things that like you don't ever realize, I think, when you're obviously watching it unfold for someone else, is being the person who is potentially affected. I just had no idea how to be able to find out like what was actually going on. I mean, news coverage was jumping all over. And so just kind of that sort of desperate feeling of like, are we okay? Has everything changed? Or like, is our home gone? And I think just the whole time in such disbelief that it could even be a reality that you're trying to figure that out. And so
well, meanwhile, there was another fire that had started that night up in Silmar, actually, which is really near my business and my office where that's located.
Oh, wow.
And I knew we lost power at my office because my security cameras were down and the internet was down. So, and I could tell that on my phone. So I initially got up and rushed over there.
Oh my goodness.
To the valley, because I needed to just kind of do triage for like, hey, we need to reschedule for our customers and our clients, and I needed to be there for my team and my staff and kind of like figure that out. I remember driving, sorry, I have like a few vivid memories that I just think are like poignant to share, because it was just like such a wild thing. I remember going west on the 210, kind of around Devil's Gate Reservoir, right as you kind of below JPL, as you go into La Cañada. And I remember just seeing like the sun had risen, but it was so dark with the smoke, and it seemed like it was still like midnight. It was just like pretty wild. And I remember just continuing this, but also kind of thinking, geez, this is not good. Get to the office, sort through some of that. And then I didn't have service, but eventually Taylor got through to me. Her boss from work, who lives probably 3-4 blocks south of us in Altadena, had sent a video showing homes burning about basically like a block east of us. And like, hey, we're trying to get to your house. You know, we just want to let you know what's going on. One of my...
Basically, it's not looking good. There's, you know, there's no firefighters. There's, you know, we're just out kind of trying to get a sense of what's going on because the sun had just recently come up. So that ended up being kind of our only resource to be able to figure out what was going on and if our neighborhood was okay. And again, I think just thinking like, there's just no way this is going to be my reality. I just remember thinking that so vividly of just like, okay, but our house has got to be okay. Like there's just no way that our house isn't okay. And I think also just thinking like, I don't know if you ever picture yourself in that sort of scenario, like you kind of picture that there would be someone there like trying to save it, you know, like that there would be like, but then there's gonna be fire trucks that come and are putting the water out and, you know, just, I just could have never imagined that it was just all like an inferno, that it was just all on fire with like no help in sight. And I think that just felt particularly like tender to feel like that was the way that you know, everything ended for our neighborhood and for our home. And they had sent that video, and so I had forwarded it to Grant and said like, hey, this is, you know, on Mar Vista, like I'm concerned, like what do we think this means? But still hoping that, okay, the fire must have gone the other direction though then, or maybe it went south of us and like our pocket still sounds like it could be okay. And so basically Grant was like, okay.
I jumped in my truck and left work and headed over, and I remember exiting right, I think it's Arroyo, like right where Woodbury is, and there's a Jack in the Box right there. And there was like a home burning, like just north of that, like very close. And I think at that point I realized, you know,
this is bigger than...
This is pretty bad. Like if a home was burning over here, the 50-50 here. And then I made my way through complete anarchy and chaos. And I'd go down like, I had my truck, tires. I knew I was safe, but I was mostly concerned about like trees or telephone poles like falling down. I remember driving past one and like the poles like this, and like it had burned like almost like 70% of it. And just thinking, there's down lines everywhere. I'd go down one street, I'd get stuck. I'd have to turn back around, find another street to get to closer to our house. Just complete chaos. There was just dogs running around, people haphazard, hearing sirens, but not really seeing a whole lot. It was just...
Well, and I think we just thought, like, there's no way that we'll be able to get through, like, initially. Right. And then realizing, like, okay, that was when I knew that I had, people that we knew that were up there. That's what prompted Grant to go. And essentially, shortly before he ended up arriving at our house, my boss had called me back and had said, and he was giving me updates of like, hey, this, the school's burning now, or like the country club is burned. And just thinking to myself, like, what in the world? But we had heard from a neighbor that maybe like there were a couple bushes that had been on fire on our street, but that was it. And so I think when I got the call from my boss, because initially he couldn't get through to our street, and I picked up and he just was like, Taylor, it's gone. And I just remember saying like, what? And he was like, it's gone. Like, it's all gone. Your whole street, boxes, like everything, Everest on the corner, like it's all gone. And I was just like, there's no way. Are you sure? Like the whole street? We had heard maybe like a couple bushes, but you're talking like every house. And he was just like, it's every house, Taylor. It's every house on your street. And I just remember like crying and saying like, okay, I gotta call Grant, and hanging up and calling him and just saying like, it's gone. Like the house is gone. And he was like, okay, well, I'm almost there. I was like 2 minutes
from the house when he had called.
I think when he called me back a few minutes later to say like, yeah, I'm here, and it's not here anymore. It just was this overwhelming, sense of loss, overwhelming sense of like, we've really built a life here. This has been a beautiful container for, our friends and our family and the family that we're building. And how is that not, like, how is the reality of everything that we've spent all these years building, like just done in an instant? So I think, that was kind of the day of and how we found out. And obviously then just figuring out how to face the reality of mourning that and figuring out what came next.
I'll never forget like calling every single one of my neighbors and basically telling, because none of them knew.
Oh no.
And I was the first, we were the first ones to find out. And I had to see it with my own eyes. And 14 of the 15 homes on our cul-de-sac were burned down to the ground. And I called every single one of them, and just felt like I was in a movie, like coming home and be like, sorry, your son or daughter died in war. Like, it kind of felt like heavy like that, and just like uncomfortable neighbor interaction, tears on the phone. Just
were you still like sitting in the neighborhood, or did you like
have to process somewhat? And then I also started to leave because there was a lot of explosion. I remember driving down the street and just like it was like backdraft. For people that went to Universal Studios back in the 90s, like you would just like, and I felt it through like my windshield, to the point where like I would vividly, like I remember like moving because it just was so intense. And then
on the way down.
I left because there was a lot of explosions, and like you just like intermittently hear like a tank exploding or like ammunition going off from someone's garage, I'm sure, I don't know. And then you just sirens and just but like just barren, like Chernobyl status, just like nothing. So it was pretty wild. It was a pretty wild day.
How long had you lived in that little area? Because I mean, obviously it speaks to your community that you had everybody in your community's number. Like, because I know that how many people can say that they could call every single one of their neighbors at that moment.
Yeah, ironically, we lived on a very special little
years.
cul-de-sac. So we'd been there for 6 years.
Okay.
But it was just a sweet little area. It had been designed by this particular architect, and there was a wishing well in the middle with an elm tree. And so we did a lot together.
Christmas carols.
Yeah, Christmas caroling.
Yeah,
And
it was Little Mayberry Lane.
yeah, one of our neighbors
it was sweet.
spent her career as a secretary, so I'll never forget when we first moved in and she came and like knocked on the door to add us to like the list of, you know, everybody's information to Clark, but everyone's
she was Dick Clark's
information to pass it around. So it was just a really sweet community that way. And I think
a lot of hand knitted blankets for when Lainey was born.
Yes, which was so sweet.
It's the coolest, you know. You're like, where are we?
I'm sure they will come back to you.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, are we in the Midwest?
Yeah,
like,
it was amazing.
Why is everybody so nice?
But yeah, we'd been up there for 6 years and
okay,
really special spot.
Wow. Walk us through a little bit of like, because I know you had a baby pretty recently after.
Yes.
So what maybe life looked like that changed? Obviously, so many things changed at once, and any part of that process that kind of felt like, because I think having a family, that's a different dynamic. You have to make decisions faster than maybe, you know, someone in my position who didn't. I had time that I could kind of take with it, and like, so I guess just walk through that part of the process. Like, how did life change, like, for you? Right after or even since then?
I think like initially, I have a lot of context professionally for fires because I'm in the industry that repairs and restores homes related to fires. Ironic. It's highly ironic that our house burned down.
I wasn't gonna say it. I was like, I'll let him if he feels the
totally.
But it is. That's such a real part of the story for you. Like,
yeah, I know. I've been like wrestling with God. I was like, did I really need more empathy for like my clients when they go through this? And it's like, I guess
we could have done it different ways, God.
Yes.
You know,
extra dose of empathy on a crazy gnarly
level. I could have taken a training, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's true.
Totally.
You had. I mean, I think because of that, Grant had the context to say like, hey, we need to find a place pretty immediately.
We had rented a house 2 days later.
So we had rented a house 2 days later, which honestly
Before
was another.
insurance even like called us back.
Even knew what was up.
Like, this
but that was also
chaos.
like a huge part of how God had showed up for us in our story was, I think, just even amidst feeling like, and I still remember walking through that house because it, you know, essentially when we got home, my mom had said, hey, there's a house that's I saw for rent sign on the street behind. I'm gonna go like drive over there and see if I can see what's up, basically. And she and Grant were both in activator mode. I was not yet, but she like was literally getting through downed trees and things. She couldn't drive through, so she had to like get out of her car and walk. Goodness. But she calls this number, and it was the landlord that had answered. You know, she said, hey, that place is actually a duplex. It wouldn't be large enough for the family, but I have another place that's for rent.
Wow.
And you know, that was the day we found out that the house had burned, so we didn't end up getting back to her right away. But I think just that next morning, as I was in conversation with my mom, we both just had this sense of like, we just need to go and see it. And at that point, honestly, I was like, who knows, is it even going to be available? Because things were getting snapped. I mean, even things that we had heard about the day of, but we're still too much in shock. As I was starting to get back to people that night, it was like, oh, sorry, I already talked to another family who's going to be using that space. And the pace of it was wild to keep up with. So I think, you know, when we decided we were going to go see it, I remember walking through and thinking like, I just don't even want to be here. Like, I want to be in my house. I have a house. Like, how am I not going back to our home? We've been preparing. And yet, like, just that the Lord continued even in that to be so faithful of like, I remember amidst those feelings, feeling a sense of like peace in the space and just that there was like the room that we would need. And he went so before us to prepare that where, you know, we found out our house burned down on a Wednesday and by Friday evening we were signing another lease. Like, that's just unheard of. And she was also so moved by our story that she had very much, you know, said, hey, I have other people that are interested in this, but if you all want this home, like, it's yours. I will put your application through and we will make this happen. And I think just seeing the ways that it's been such a holding pattern and a beautiful holding space for our family. Our daughter told us this morning that she loves it and never wants to leave because she specifically loves that she can reach the snacks in the pantry in our new teeny kitchen. And so it just gives you perspective that, you know,
that's a blessing.
God's still showing up and growing us, and he's still very much with us in the interim. So I think that was a big piece of obviously the what's next was just figuring out where we were going to be, especially preparing to bring our son home. And
highly recommend having your house burned down and have a baby 2 months later.
Oh,
its own set of challenge for sure.
Wow.
But like people, like our communities, and we were pretty new to Vintage. I think we had been at Vintage for
a year,
maybe
6 months or something.
And I mean, the amount of people that showed up for us is just incredible. It was really hard to accept like so much generosity that was just like that was flying around, just incredible. Just like, I think it was one of the definitely the most humbling experience to go through. You don't realize even the small impacts that you leave on anybody you ever talk to or any community you've been a part of dating back to forever. I think I had one of my mom's friends from elementary school in Montana reach out.
Yeah.
I don't even know who she is. You know,
we had
incredible. Just the acts of generosity. It was pretty unbelievable. It felt like I felt the best way I can describe it is it felt like we were at our own funeral, but we were there in person watching people like honor and take care of us, but we were still there. And it was such a weird experience to just like physically be there to receive and the embrace and just so much like financial support and just like things that we needed to just like get a crib for a baby that was coming in a month, and just like, you know, we just had nothing, and just trying to navigate all that. I'll never forget the infinite
like outpour from people.
Just God has been insanely faithful and through this whole experience and provided for us and tenfold. And it's been crazy, but it's been so humbling, and people are great. You know, like there's so many amazing people around us in our community. It's so it's still just shocking, like what we experienced and the love, and
I can imagine that would have presented, because you probably had bought all this stuff for the baby, and then to realize that you were having a baby in a month, and that was like changed and different. And because I know there's such a part of that, like, or I've heard there's such a part of that like that nesting where you need to feel like things are ready and you're like put together. So I'm assuming that was a whole unique challenge that was yours, you know, like in this process.
Well, and our like journey to our son was a long one as well, and we had prayed for years before we were able to get pregnant with him. And so I think that also just felt like its own unique experience of being like, Lord, we've waited so long for this, and we've prayed so intently for this, and now it just feels like it's surrounded with so much chaos. And it was, and yet I think there was also an element of it that ended up bringing so clearly into perspective for us, like what ultimately matters. And that has continued, where it's been a matter of saying like, man, I thought this was gonna look different. I didn't think this was gonna be surrounded with so much overwhelmed. Like I thought this was, kind of finally gonna be our year and our moment, and now there's all this chaos. But just the refining that has happened, and that's not to just like tie a shiny bow around something. That's like the very genuine. It's hard. We've had to mourn a lot of things. We still have a lot of moments of homesickness, and we have a lot of clarity that I think is very uniquely received from a scenario like this around like what matters. And I think just the ability to soak up his little life as it came all the more, and just all the people that came around us and like rallied to make that happen. And replaced Steffi's tenfold for our daughter because that's what she was, most sad about in the aftermath. Yeah. And that was definitely its own unique experience too, trying to walk, a 5-year-old through what it means to have that we weren't going home and what it means that we've lost this place that's really special to her. And there were lots of nights of tears around like, I just want to be back home. But even that she's gained perspective about like, okay, but here's what hasn't changed. Like we're still together as a family. God still like loves us. He's with us. He's making a way for us. And we still get to live this lovely, we still get to build a life together here in our new little home that he's given us, and with Brooks, our brother, and a lot of that. I mean, as I'm coaching her through it, I'm coaching myself through it too, for sure.
Step out of the room, cry, when they come back, we're...
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I remember we were talking about, I was starting to tell her like, well, we are gonna like, someday we're gonna move back to our home and, our land, and she goes, she's like, well, the house we rent's white. It's very quaint and small, and we call it the White House because it's, it's highly ironic, but it's not big.
It's literal, but
so it's called the White House. It's the White House. And I remember her saying, she's like, well, why? And I was like, well, we're not gonna be here forever, just for a couple years. And she's like, well, why are we gonna leave the White? Like, oh, so the White House is gonna burn then? And I remember just like looking at her and just thinking like, wow, like, no, baby, like that probably won't ever happen again. But like her context is like, well, like, you have to move every few years because your house burns down. And, but like that totally made logical sense in what she's experienced in 4 or 5 years. And so, like walking through with a young kid, like how to process the grief and just like that event, and she'll remember it, it's been an interesting
part of the journey for sure.
Yeah, definitely. What is one thing like you would like people to know, like about whether it's the process or things to say, not to say, like just anything that kind of comes up for you, like, because obviously you've had this amazing community around you, you've been surrounded. I feel like sometimes when you ask a question like, how are you doing? And it's, we were just talking about it many times in this series, but just like, it's so layered, but like, is there any kind of unique thing that you're like, hey, I really wish people knew this, or this is a part of our story that's really, really helpful?
I think just that the ongoing process is one that's dynamic, and it is really easy. I can completely understand how, for most things that you're unaffected by, it feels more like it's a point in time and then life goes on, and it does. And I think also, being the person who's in it, being able to check in with something like, hey, what part of the process are you in right now, and how's it landing for you currently, is such a helpful question or a way to check in on it, because that can change. There have been moments, we've decided to rebuild, and so there have been moments in that feel really exciting and hopeful for like, oh, we're through the debris clearing, we're done trying to figure that out, we now get to dream about the next chapter. There's some fear around that though, with like, what's it gonna look like? And how will it be the same, but how will it be different? So yeah, there's moments of excitement, there's moments of some fear, there's moments of homesickness even, where something can come up and it can feel like, oh, I just wish I was home. I wish I was in the routines and the community that has held us, because that, I think, is the other unique thing about the Altadena fire is it wasn't just, a home that was lost. It would have been one thing if it was just like our home that was gone and we needed to rebuild it, but our neighbors are still there, or our street is still there, or the coffee shop and the grocery store and the post office are still there, but all of those things are gone. So everything about your routine is just like picked up and moved for a time, and even as it's recreated, it will be something different. And so I think that's just an interesting part of perspective that can land differently at different times. And so I've been so grateful for people in our life who have, I think just been leaned into the fact that it's a fluid process, and just being able to check in and kind of meet us in the excitement when we're ready to dream for what's next, and then in the moments where it feels hard, and we wish we could go home, and we can't. We're kind of creating a life differently than we thought we were going to, and without any anticipation for it. So
I think there's like an element of irrelatability to what we've gone through and what we're going through that makes people uncomfortable to ask about it. And it almost maybe indirectly feels kind of like, oh, almost like a death maybe, or we talked about it and okay, like I'm just gonna leave that where it is. And some people it might be more triggering for other people. I can't speak for everyone to talk about it or to talk about like where they're at. And some people are like further ahead, and some people still don't have a clue what they're doing. And some people don't have any money from their insurance. Some people don't have insurance, like all these factors. But for us, it's been like really helpful to have people ask questions and to like process and to talk about it even today, and continue to talk about it. I think I've been thrown off by surprise is probably a better term for like people that are like, they'll hint at something, then I'll go into it, and then they'll be like, oh, yeah, I didn't like, they're almost like, oh, I didn't want to make you feel like you have to talk about it. And I was like, oh no, like I love talking about it.
I know exactly what you mean, because I think it's that like we want to ask, but we don't know what to do with the information when it comes, and it's honest.
It's so
and
natural,
it's human.
and it's so honest.
Maybe I love talking about it's not the right term, but like I'm good talking about it. I think that there's like hope in it, and you know, we can talk about the lemonade that we're making out of the scenario. And
and I think the other thing that I would want people to know, or the other thing that maybe we've gleaned from this experience is, I think just the sense that like if I can pass on perspective to you know, to someone who's not in this, man, it's just so crazy, like that the things that we're building can be so temporary. I just had, you know, that you hear that, we all say it, we've talked about it, you know, from Sunday school and beyond. But I think being able to see it firsthand of like, you know, you put so much stock in all the things that like you're gonna create and you're gonna control. And the reality is like that surrender is just something we've had to do so much more of. And yet there is like so much beauty in it. And it's hard, it's not easy, but it's definitely like where the rich stuff of life is, I think. And it has given us so much perspective on like, here's how we want to spend our time and what matters most. And I think if you have the opportunity to ask yourself those questions or lean into that without having, you know, the scenario where your whole house burns down, then that's extra a win, you know, to be able to say like, what really matters at the end of the day? What are we gonna talk about? What are we gonna miss? What are we gonna be proud of that we did? And I think like time and people, you know, are ultimately what we've just been reminded of, like, that's what the Lord has us to lean into. And those are the things that we can best steward. And
I think with a church community, it's normal for us to want to like come around people and get involved and participate and, hey, I want to drop off a meal. I think one of the learnings I've had is like when people are going through things today or in the future, no matter what that might look like, that are like difficult situations, I think that we should be encouraged to like boldly pursue them and love them and provide for them, even when it's like, I don't even know what to do. And not even like, I don't even need to ask you what you need. I'm just gonna do something, and and it's the thought that counts. And I feel like really encouraged to just like boldly pursue and like love our community when they're going through hard things. Cause you know, I mean, it's just, that's what we're here. That's what the church is supposed to do. But I think it can sometimes feel uncomfortable. But when those people are going through that, it means a lot. So.
Yeah, and you know, like firsthand that like it is hard when someone asks you, what do you need? I don't even know what right now. But like, yes, there are things that I need. So like showing up, that's something I've learned through this. Like if someone's going through something, like I'm just gonna show up with food. Like you can choose if you want it or not, but like to ask you like, how can I help? I'm like, that is the most unhelpful question in my experience. Obviously it could be different, but just to boldly show up is like really powerful. We'll kind of start to like wrap it down a little bit, but give us like one thing as a church community, like, because you're a part of the process right now, so you're like looking at rebuilding, which I'm assuming is a slow maybe start. Yes. Let us know like one thing we can be doing to pray for you in this season, just to kind of like surround you a little bit, and kind of uplift in this time.
I think the things that come to mind would be prayer for just that practically the gates would be really open in this rebuilding process, that things would move efficiently, and even at an expedited pace, that roadblocks would be lifted. I mean, that's such a practical and tangible prayer that people could offer up on our behalf. That would mean so much. I really believe that can make a difference, and I think that's our biggest hope. So I think prayers for that, and then I think also just prayers for our family in the interim, if ever anyone thinks about it, just in terms of peace to be where we are, to have presence. I think it's really easy to go back or to jump ahead and to really feel like we can be where our feet are, and that it can just be enough and not feel like we have to get so caught up in the way that we thought that things would look or that we hope that they'll look in the future, but just like for where we are right now. And sometimes that can feel easier said than done. So I think prayers for just like a supernatural spirit and ability for that would be so incredible. And overall, I mean, just we've been so grateful, or above all else, I should say, we've just been so grateful for Vintage and the way that people have continued to check in and say, hey, I just want to, how is it going? How are you guys doing? What part of the process are you in? Is there anything you've come up against lately that you realize you need that we could drop off? There's been so many of those moments that have been so sweet, as rebuilding is a marathon instead of a sprint.
What is one thing that you wish you would have taken or found in your search? I know you did get a lot of things, which is really cool, but
I think the things that come to mind for me are like, there was Christmas ornaments like that were just, special kind of family heirlooms that I'm like, oh my gosh, I just wish like those hold such like special sentimental value. That would have been really sweet to have with us and get to feel like that gets to carry on from before. And then probably like the funny thing would be that when one of the last of like probably 5 or 6 phone calls that I did make to Grant as he was driving up, and I kept thinking about things that I should supposedly take from our house, was I was like, I just got a really new cute pair of shoes. Like, could you please just grab them for me? Is that too much? I don't know. And
I mean, it's not like I had an entire truck bed.
He was like, Taylor, I'm checking on our neighbors. I threw all the important stuff in the car. I'm not taking your shoes. And I was just like, you know what, fine, you're right. Like, it's too much. We're going home. It's not a big deal. And then I remember after the fact, once we could get our sense of humor back, I was like, yeah, remember those shoes? Like, wish we would have thrown them in. They were really cute.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to remember forever. Like, there's just no part.
Oh, man.
Did you wish you grabbed anything? Or
your fly fishing gear, probably. Yeah. Or your grandpa, like special stuff.
It's not like really things of value. It's like, like my grandpa taught me how to fish, and I'm a passionate, avid fly fisherman now. And, things that I've picked up from his sons or my uncles over the years, but they'll ship me something. And, I had some old fly zipper pouches that had his like initials on them and stuff like that. And there was his and a bunch of his hand-tied flies and stuff where like he used to carry his licenses and like a picture of me and just stuff like that I had that completely.
Those are harder to replace.
Not monetarily valuable at all, but that's the stuff where you're like.
Makes up a life.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the tough things, but.
That makes sense.
And I think that's, that is making me think of, maybe something that's helpful to end on. And I remember afterwards, there was like an Every Moment Holy Liturgy that I had come across that was so helpful, talking about those who have like lost property to fire or flood or things like that. And the liturgy talked about how, we're mourning these things, we're mourning this physicality because of the holy moments that they held, because of the life that they created. Yeah. And I think that just felt so appropriate to me, of being like, yeah, I know that, this is all temporary. And so why does this feel so hard and sad? And I think it was more so to say like, oh, we're mourning more of like the holy parts that this created. And so how do we believe that will come again in a new way? And how do we honor that when we lose that? Like, it's a real shift. And so those are some of the things that we think about in terms of like, oh man, that's something that will have been sad to lose. And then, okay, God, what invitation do you have for new ways that, we'll get to carry that legacy forward in a different way, or we'll get to bring holy moments to life in this next chapter and in the next spaces that we show up in.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Yeah, I started to not enjoy the phrase like it's just stuff.
Yeah.
And I know because like before something like that happens, you're probably the one, I would be the one to say it, like, oh, it's like we don't need to be so materialistic. But then it was like, no, these are the things that like really made up like our lives. They were the shoes that you really loved, that you put, like there was an emotional connection to it. And it was like, this is, so I do think there's the holy moments, the things that we bring that do lean into it. So what's been one thing or a part of the community that still feels very like special and present for you?
Sure. Yeah, I think honestly it's funny. Anybody that's watching this or listening to this is gonna laugh because they just know it's so me, or
they don't know it's you and they're like, what's up with this?
Or they're about to find out. I love the grocery outlet in Altadena. I love all grocery outlets, but especially the one in Altadena. I love my girl Linda, my girl Ophelia. Like, I'm all about it. I love them. I would see them like every day. And so I go up there a couple times a week to continue to like support their business and the employees that are there, and hoping that they get more hours, and they're going through a lot. But the fact that the grocery outlet is still standing is a blessing.
Grant's like famous line was that he was like, well, of course they are. They're the greatest of all time. Like if everything is going to be lost in Altadena, of course grocery outlet will still be there and we'll persevere. There's like
everything else
better.
Can go, but like the grocery outlet's still there. I'm moving back. We're in.
But the great thing is they have actually been a huge part of the community and the recovery. And so they are this beautiful little beacon in the middle. But yes, anyone who's had a conversation with you probably has heard you talk about grocery outlet.
Yeah, well, and there's also just, you guys have Vintage has done a great job about highlighting like businesses and things like that. There's a ton of great small businesses up there. One that we know the owner and the chef is a little restaurant called Betsy.
Oh yes.
That just reopened, and
I tried to get a reservation and it was sold, or it was gone for the night.
I could text Tyler for
which we're like, we're here for it.
I will come
we
to
want
you.
them to be sold
so
out.
So we've been trying to support them as much as we can,
Love it.
and he's out of his mind to reopen a restaurant like in the middle of ground zero. But
it's breathing so much life in up there. It's
incredible. But that is what's gonna like hold it together. That's gonna make it the difference.
It's the boldness of like the businesses, and just even people say like, I'm rebuilding, I'm moving back, like we're gonna be okay. Yeah, it's scary, we don't know what it's gonna look like, but we're going for it. Like there's so much beauty. And I remember talking to, his name's Tyler Wells, and I said, Tyler, you're crazy. Like you're opening a restaurant right now? Like no one lives here. And this is like, there's rubble all around you. And he goes, my gut tells me I need to do this. And he's like, if I fail, I'm gonna fail like running through a concrete wall. Yeah. And he's like, I don't care. I'm gonna do this. And I was I was gonna like hug him and cry. And I was just like, man, you were so inspiring. And so there's people up there, so many like Mia, Betsy, Nancy. El Patron.
Tons of restaurants.
There's so many restaurants that are still trying to like figure it out. And go up there, and everybody, you need to go visit the grocery outlet.
His goal is to get everybody to switch from other stores to grocery outlet.
Yeah, you're missing out. Yeah. It's the best.
Come to Grant if you have any other questions.
Yeah, I don't work there, but
All right, well, thank you guys. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.